morning. This is virtual PBX-admin training. Be getting started in just a minute here. So we do stream every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, although in a couple weeks, March 23rd, we will not be having a stream. So just a heads up for that. Generally speaking, the stream lasts between about an hour and a half and an hour and 45 minutes. If you can't be here for that entire time, I understand. We do record the trainings, so you can always come back to our channel and view this week's training or even previous trainings at your leisure. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get started here. So on the screen here, you've got our dash login page, which is at cash.virtualpbx.com. And it's asking you for your username, which is your email address, a password, which you should have received via email, and then the account name, which is typically your company name. Now, if you happen to forget your password or you didn't get the email, you can click on Forgot Your Info here towards the bottom right. And then you just fill in your email address and then either the account name or a phone number on the account. Right? And then you click on Reset Password. You'll get another email basically saying, hey, click this link to log in, and the system will walk you through changing your password. After you change your password that way, it will log you back out and have you log in with your new password. But for most people, I also say, hey, put a check mark here on Remember Me, so that way you don't have to remember passwords. And what just happened? Okay. Hold on a minute. Let's try that again. There we go. I was afraid I might have changed my password and didn't remember it. All right. So we're going to get logged in here to this test account here. Now, if it's your first time logging in, you'll actually be taken to a page that will look like this. So this is your general account information. If you're an admin, you also get the account info. And the main thing that people change is here, where they can change the time zone for the entire account. Now, this is a test account. On a live account, you would actually have another section over here on the left, underneath where it says user, for your billing information. So you could update your credit card information. You could see your service plan. You could also update your billing contact information, so like the person who gets the invoices. Also, that first time you're logging in, you get the little dash wizard, so there'll be pop-ups explaining what things are and what you can change. Once you're done in here, go ahead and click Close over here to the top right. And we'll be back here on our dashboard page. Now, up here on your name, if you just click on your name again, that will take you back to that account page that we were just looking at. Here we've got the D&D toggle, or Do Not Disturb. Basically, if you click this on, you're saying, hey, all calls that come to me go to voicemail. If you happen to be logged into an ACD queue, you're not going to be offered queue calls when you're on Do Not Disturb. So something to be aware of. Got a little question mark icon here. You've got the chat with us, right? So you can open up a chat window to speak to our support team. You can go to the online store. You can order products via store.virtualpbx.com. So things like VoIP phones, etc. The Learn More link, which takes you to the support pages. So you can look at various guides and tutorials. And if you've added a web phone to your user, you'll have a link here to open up the web phone. Then here we've got the menu icon or the hamburger icon. These are, right now we're on the dashboard, so these get you to other features of Dash. Some of the features, like ACD queues, for example, do have a cost associated with them, so I'll try to point that out. And then we've got the logout icon over here. On the left, we've got these major features of Dash, which we'll be going through all of them. Again, some of these might be only show up on specific account plans, so I'll try to point those out as well. All right, total users, I have 21. These are all the people on my account who can make and receive calls. Depending on your plan, adding users may increase your bill, so that's something to be aware of, i.e. if you're on a per user plan, adding each user would increase your bill. Down below, we got total devices. I have 37 devices, and then I have a breakdown right here. So I have, looks like 14 cell phones, pretty self-explanatory. Got 12 web phones. So a web phone is actually kind of soft phone, which is this other item here, right? So soft phone means a software application uses your internet connection to make and receive calls, right? The web phone is specific to using Chrome or Firefox to make and receive calls from your computer using your internet connection. The web phone, so for Chrome and Firefox, does need to be on a computer. So desktop or a laptop computer, it is not consistent on a mobile device like a cell phone or a tablet. SIP phone, right here. This is a physical VoIP phone, right? Sits on a desk. It could be from Cisco, Polycom, Yealink, etc. This is an auto-provisioned phone, essentially. The other thing about soft phone, you can have a VirtualPBX soft phone. You can have a third-party soft phone, so that you're using a software application from someone else. Or you could use those third-party soft phone credentials to program a physical phone that isn't on the auto-provision list, which we'll get to. And then here we've got landline, which is pretty self-explanatory. You notice here I have a listing for unregistered devices, total of 14. Dash knows for your VoIP phones whether they're connected or not, i.e. registered with us, right? So these 14 devices, I can't send calls to them, right? And they can't make outbound calls. That can be because they're simply not on, right? Someone didn't put in the power cord, or they didn't log into their soft phone application yet. Right? It could be they have a major internet outage from their service provider, so they can't even get on the internet, period. Can't use their VoIP phones, right? It could also be something silly, like the dog ran by, pulled out a cable, right? It could be a router configuration error. So a lot of different possibilities. Next up, we've got total phone numbers, which I have 43 on the account. Generally speaking, accounts include anywhere from 1 to 15 phone numbers as part of their plan price, meaning you get a certain amount of phone numbers included, right? You don't pay extra for those phone numbers. Now, once you go over that allotment, then you're paying on a per phone number basis, anywhere from $1.99 to $4.99 per phone number per month. It's going to depend on your plan. So no matter what, on this account, I'm paying extra for phone numbers. And then down here, we've got a breakdown. So the first breakdown here is between assigned numbers and spare numbers. So an assigned number is a number I'm using, right? It goes to my salesperson, Bob, or it goes to my billing ring group, or it's one of my main numbers, right? It's my fax box number, or it's going to my tech support ACD queue, or any number of different things, right? A spare number, it's a number on my account, but I'm not using. If someone dials it, they're not going to get through to anyone, right? It could be a number that I had for a special, like, say, holiday promotion, right? And say, so I had a Valentine's Day promotion. Well, Valentine's Day is over, so I'm going to take that number out of service, so I'm not getting all sorts of calls on this number that I don't really need, because they're probably robo-dialers or just, telemarketer people just trying to hit a phone number, especially since I'm not promoting that item or service any longer, right? It can also be that you've got a set of numbers in sequence. So you get 10 numbers in sequential order, and you just haven't gotten to the last ones of them yet. You're just holding on to those numbers. Right. The other breakdown here I have is USDID and US toll-free. Right. So toll-free, 800 or 800 number, 888 all the way down to 833. It does, these numbers also work in Canada. It's just shorthand for the system here. USDID, that's just for US local number, right? So if you have a number, say, in Saratoga, New York versus the phone number for Saratoga, California, right? They're going to have different area codes, but you could have them in both because you have a Saratoga-themed business. You can also have a listing here for international phone numbers. If you're interested in adding an international phone number to your account, you're going to want to email our porting team. That's porting@virtualpbx.com. And you're going to need to include the city and country that you're interested in. Now, some areas don't care, right? They say, okay, here, you can have a number. Other places, they want proof of presence, right? Germany, for example, they want proof of presence, like a utility bill, in the city that you're requesting a number in. Right, so it's going to vary from place to place. Next up, we've got conference bridges, 5. That means I've enabled conferencing on 5 of my users, meaning I have 5 people who can host a conference or moderate a conference, depending on how you want to look at it. Over here on the right, main number. You can have multiple main numbers here if you're so inclined. If you do, all these numbers will behave the same way, meaning they'll go to the same place and they'll have the same main greeting. Conference bridge. This is how everyone who's going to go to a conference would dial this number, including people who are moderating it. Once you have a number here, you can assign or you can enable the conference bridge feature on the users. Fax box number. This enables faxing on the account. This is the number people would be faxing to, so that way you get the faxes. You can currently only have one fax box number. You can have multiple conference numbers as well as multiple main numbers. The company directory, this downloads a text file which has your users and their extension numbers. Next up, we've got the soft phone directory. This is a download link. Now, this is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application. So you download this file, then you upload it to the soft phone app, and you'll then see everyone in your company who has a soft phone and their status in relation to that soft phone, right? So if I had this installed, I could see, if my coworker Mike is on a call or not, for example, and then if he's not, I can then just call him. Next up, we've got the store discount code. Basically, just for being a customer, you get a discount in our store. And then lastly, we've got the account realm. So the account realm is used in a couple things. It's used in that programming of third-party soft phone applications or devices. It's one of the 3 key pieces of information you need to set those up. It's also used when you're sending an outbound fax. So on Dash currently, faxing out is via email to fax. So you create an email. In the to field of that email, you put the plus sign, the number 1, the area code and phone number you're faxing to, and then the @ symbol, and then your account realm. And then you simply attach a PDF or a TIFF file, and you click send. Right? You don't need to type in the body of the email. In fact, there's no point in typing in the body of the email. That doesn't get transmitted. Essentially, you're emailing the system. The system grabs the attachment. That's all it looks at. Doesn't look at anything else other than the to number, and then converts that document so it can go over an analog phone signal and sends it out. Now, faxing does take some time. You'll get an email confirmation once the fax has gone through, or if it didn't go through. But that confirmation can take a while. Like I sent, as a test, I once sent a 7 megabyte document out via fax, and I didn't get the confirmation for over an hour. Right, and that's, I've had customers who sent out a small file, like a 1-page document, and they didn't get the confirmation for 15 minutes or so. So that's something to be aware of. And that will vary from day to day. All right. Up here at the top, we've got caller ID. This is your main company caller ID. If you have multiple main numbers, this pull down here would populate so you can select any of your main numbers. But whichever number you highlight here, this becomes your default number for a couple other features. And I'll try to make sure I highlight those as we go through. Down here, we've got the company caller ID name, or CNAME. This is text you can enter up to 15 characters, including spaces and special characters. And then once you click Save Changes, this information gets transmitted to the other carriers who support CNAME. Right, that's called the provisioning aspect of CNAME. So basically, when you make an outbound call from your VoIP phones, right, we'll default to sending it via, your outbound call ID will be this phone number here, the 702 number, and then we'll also include the CNAME information that will go out. Now, the other aspect of CNAME is the delivery, right? So all the carriers between us and whoever you're calling have to support CNAME. And then your device that is receiving the call also has to be able to have a screen that can display. So that brings up a couple of caveats. One, not every carrier supports CNAME. Now, most carriers that you've heard of, like AT&T, et cetera, they all support it to some degree or another. Right? It's usually the smaller regional carriers that may or may not. And then a caveat for cell phones. Right, the cell phone carriers determine what shows up on the cell phone display, right? So sometimes you may get a call, it says spam risk, right, or spam, right? So that's your cell phone provider saying, hey, we've seen this number make many calls that are typically spam or robodialers, so you can ignore it if you want to, right? So some of these cell phone carriers, they do support CNAME, but you typically have to pay for it. So that's something you should, if you're interested on your own cell phone, you'd want to explore that with your cell phone carrier. But when you make tests with CNAME, you want to be careful about testing to a cell phone because it may not properly show up. All right, down here, we've got the emergency information for E911. So this would be the address that's associated with this 702 phone number. So basically, if one of my staff members picks up their VoIP phone and dials 911, this is the address information that gets transmitted to emergency services. So you want to make sure it's an accurate address for this facility. And then any changes you make, you would click on Save Changes. All right. Next up, we've got hold music. Now on Dash, you can upload your own hold music. You would just click Upload, Browse on your computer to find a WAV or MP3 file, and then click on the little upload icon here. And then you'll see a status bar. And once it's done uploading, you would click on Save Changes. Now, a couple other things to know about the files to upload. Right, so .wav, .mp3 are the two file formats supported. You want to make sure it's recorded in mono, not in stereo. And you want to make sure that it's under 1 megabyte in size. For reference, a 1 megabyte MP3 is about 5 minutes long. And that's going to be consistent for anywhere you can upload a media file. Now, hold music on Dash. This is after a call has reached a user with a VoIP phone, right? So they started talking to the customer, and then they press hold on their VoIP phone. That's when hold music will play. Right, so we have this hours section here, but that's actually part of main number. So let's just go over to the main number. All right, so first up we have main company numbers. You notice I have the one number here. Now you can always add some spare numbers, right? So any of your extra numbers on your account, you can just add directly here. Right, so like I can decide, hey, I want to have a toll-free number also as a main number. And now it's available here. Right, you can also buy numbers, right? So local is you enter in an area code. So let's go with 775 for Northern Nevada. So then I have this selection of numbers. If I scroll down to the bottom, it will typically populate more numbers. But I can just add a number. You notice here the cart increased by 1. It shows the number. I can also click delete to remove the number and say I can add this one instead. And when you do that, then you can scroll down here at the bottom. You click on By Numbers. Right now, the system's verifying the number was actually still available, and then adding it to my account and activating it, and now it's here. Toll-free is similar in that it's a little bit easier because it has the toll-free prefixes already listed, and then you just click Search, and it'll show you the available numbers. Now, if you ever search an area code and it has no results returning, you can send an email to porting at virtualpbx.com to see if we can get a number for that particular area code. However, normally what that means is that area code is likely exhausted, right? So, like a lot of numbers for New York City, right? There's like the original area code for New York City. I forget what it is. That area code has been exhausted for a long time. So the likelihood of getting that number in that area code is very low. We can still attempt to make a back order, and what all that is we're saying, hey, we want a number for this area code. If one becomes available, we then attempt to get it, and then we can add it to your account. You won't get any kind of choice. It's just this is the one that became available first. This is what we got. So if you're in densely populated areas, you do want to double check what your area code overlays. So that way you have other options to look up to get numbers more quickly. All right, once you've added a number anywhere, you have an option here, little gear icon, and you can update the caller ID for that phone number, right? So you can add the caller company ID name, as well as to turn on having inbound CNAME information come through to your staff members. You also have the E911, so you can add additional different addresses, right? So you have different office locations. Prepend is a VoIP feature, so you can add text in front of the caller ID that will show up on your staff members' VoIP phones, right? So basically, their phone rings, they look at their phone's display, they'll see the prepend information plus the area code and phone number that the call's coming in from. So that can give your staff members a heads up about what kind of call they're taking. All right, office hours strategy. So by default, new accounts are on 24-hour open office. However, if you want, you can go to custom office hours, and then for each day of the week that you're open, you put a check mark, and then you put your open hours in 24-hour or military time in these boxes to the right. And then down below, you can also say you're closed for lunch. All right, so if you put a check mark there, again, you put your lunch hours, and you would then click on Save Changes. Next up is office holidays. If you're closed for holidays, you put a check mark up here, top left. And then over to the right, you have Add Holiday. You've got Single Day, Date Range, and Advanced. Right, single day is like we have here for President's Day. Right, you have a row, you give it a name, and then you put the month and the date. Right, date range is like we have up here for Christmas. Start date, end date. Main thing to notice here is there's no year indicator, so you do not want a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, as that can put you in after hours mode all year. And then as an example for the advanced, we have here the retreat, where I'm saying, hey, the first Friday in July, we're on holiday, right? Company picnic day. And the options here, which unfortunately I'm not showing up, basically first through fourth, as well as last, and then each day of the week. And then you would click on Save Changes. All right, now we've got incoming call handling, and I've got open hours and holidays, right? Because I left it at 24-hour open office. So these open hours, this is for all my main numbers, right? So up here, right, I've got 3 numbers. So anyone calls in on these 3 numbers during my open hours, right now I'm sending them to the virtual receptionist. If I click on this, the link, it's going to open up a box. And on the left, this is your main menu. This is what people press on their phone to navigate through your phone system, right? 1 for sales, 2 for support, that sort of thing. If you're on the right, we've got your greeting. This is where you give your customers instructions. Right? You probably say thank you for calling, your company name. You can include things like any special promotions or hours or what have you in your main greeting, but you do want to include what to press to get to where. And then we have these general settings. So in terms of the main menu, if you need to add a menu option, you would just click on Add Route. And then from the pull down, you have default route, star, and then 0 through 9 to pick from. And then you're saying, okay, where does that go? Right, so if we go up here, right, you can go to the Smart Directory, right, so people can dial by name. You can send calls to a specific person, right, so one of your users. I can send it to a call queue, like a department with advanced routing options. I can send it to a specific device. That's usually not recommended just because if the device doesn't have voicemail, then the call will just end at some point. Next up, you got a media file. So you can have a greeting file play. Again, not typically recommended because once the file stops playing, the call ends. The system will say goodbye, but they don't have a chance to get back to the menu or leave a message. And then you can set it to a ring group. A ring group is a less powerful version of a queue, but basically it's a department. You can send it to an advanced call flow. This would be if you're making use of submenuing, as well as to a voicemail box. So we can send it there. And you can tell that these have different little icons for each kind of location. In terms of your greetings, you got text-to-speech. You simply type in a greeting. You would click Update, and then save changes. The text-to-speech greeting is limited to about 350 characters, give or take. If it's a very complicated greeting, it's less characters. If it's very straightforward, you can get a little bit more. This is good for people, start up business, or they've never used a PBX system, so they're trying to get used to it. You can update this relatively quickly as you get used to the system and how you want calls to actually route. Upload your own file. You can choose a file, .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. And then you click Update and then save changes. You can choose from an existing recording file. Unfortunately, the pull down isn't working here, but basically any file that you've already added to the system, you can choose from. You can record it over the phone. Now, when it says pick up a phone registered to the account, this means the system is saying use a VoIP phone that you've already added to this account. Now, that's a security feature, so you know it's a trusted phone into the system. But then you would call your main number, and then when you hear the greeting play, or you would enter this PIN number. Now, if you already have a greeting in play, right, as soon as you hear the greeting play, you enter this PIN number. If you're just starting up, you're going to get a message saying there's no greeting recorded for this menu. You would enter the PIN number. In either case, the system will walk you through recording a greeting over the phone. Now, if you already have a greeting in place, right, so you have greeting A, and you dial in to record over the phone, the file name will stay the same, right? Greeting A, file name stays the same, but you're overwriting that content. So that's great if you don't care, like, oh, well, we're just changing this greeting, that's the way it's going to be, right? That could be more problematic for if you have a special greeting you want for the holidays, but then you want to revert back to what you were using. So that's something just to be aware of. You have professional recording services. If you click Order, it will take you to Snap Recordings. They have about 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They have various versions of English, Spanish, and French, so you can do multilingual greetings. They have what they call hold treatment, so a mix of a music file and a script being read. They handle their own billing via credit card. They deliver to you via email. and then you would simply upload the file. All right, next up, we got the settings. So number of retries on misdial, this is how many times an inbound caller can choose an invalid option. So for instance, I can call in and you get one try automatically, right? First try is free. Let's say I press 5. Well, that's an invalid option, and the system will tell you that's an invalid option. It'll play the greeting again, right? Say I hit 5. Again, greeting will play again. So that's my first retry. And then after my second retry, then the system will say, okay, I'm going to send you to the default route. If there's no default route enabled, then the system will say goodbye. Or we'll give you a message saying we didn't recognize your entry, goodbye. Dialing timeout, this is how much time the system waits after it hears a button press before it assumes that the person is done, right? So I press 5, and in this case, it's going to wait for 1 second. It says, oh, they're done, and then say, oh, invalid entry. Right. Allow outside recording. Now, this is by default, this is typically set to off. But when it's on, what this does is when you want to record it over the phone, allow outside recording is on. That means I can use a cell phone or a landline to call in and record it over the phone. And then the reason you'd want to turn that off is you don't want some random person just trying to figure out what the PIN number is and changing your main greeting on you. All right. Allow dialing extensions. If this is on, that means when someone gets to your virtual receptionist here, right, they have all your main options, main menu options, but if they know the extension number that they're trying to reach, they can just simply enter that. Right? Whereas if I turn this off, that means the inbound caller can only enter in the menu options that are available. And then you would click save. Now, one thing about the default route, robodialers are a problem typically, especially with 800 numbers. So when a robodialer comes into a system with a default route on the virtual receptionist, right, they keep waiting. They'll go through the retry attempts, then they'll get to the default route. Usually, it's like for a lot of companies, it's a voicemail box, right? So then they leave random voicemail message about your car warranties, the big one lately, or you get that weird joke in a language you can't understand, or music file, what have you. So if you don't want that to happen, or at least cut down on the impact of robodialers, then you can get rid of a default route. Now, that's for some people, that's not what your customers are used to, so you might have to put up with having a default route. Now, if you make any changes on the main menu or on your greetings or on these settings, you want to click Save here, and then Save Changes under Incoming Call Handling. So now you know all your changes took effect. All right. So then, next routing option, this is routing option 2. Call comes into Bob. If he's not able to answer, goes to the virtual receptionist. Now, this virtual receptionist is the same one we were just looking at. Notice, right? I saved all these settings to off, so I can turn that back on, for example, and click Save. I would need to click Save Changes here. But what this is the live operator option, right? Call comes in, you're offering it to a staff member or multiple staff members a chance to answer the call first. And if they're not able to, then the call goes to the virtual receptionist. Right? This is a pull down, so you can select any of your users. You can select a queue. You can select a device. You can select a media file. You can also select a ring group. Right, third option, call, I'm offering it to Bob. If he doesn't answer, it goes to voicemail. Again, same pull down options for the most part in terms of I can add any user, any ring group, any queue. I can have a media file play. I can send it to a device. There's one additional option. Let's get to the bottom here, which is skip the voicemail. Basically, call comes in, send it to the voicemail box. Doesn't ring anybody. Last option here is to advance call flows, meaning I'm sending it to, in this case, another auto attendant. Not generally recommended, just because if you're going to have your main numbers go to a different attendant, you might as well make the settings you have on this attendant under your virtual receptionist under main number. Now, for holidays, you have these same routing options, right? Just be aware that the virtual receptionist is unique to each time, right? So for my holidays, I have a very different main menu. For example, I'd probably have a different main greeting play, right? Likewise, for after hours, you would have these same options to choose from. But again, you could set up your virtual receptionist to have its own greeting for after hours. Well, typically on when I see this third option like this, skip the voicemail, I usually do see this on the holidays for customers. All right, main conference number. You can add additional conference numbers if you wish, right? Or you can buy new ones. You have the custom greeting here, which is a text-to-speech greeting. So if you click enable, and then you simply type in what you want to say, and then click save. If you don't have a custom greeting set, the system still says, welcome to the conference. Please enter the conference room number, and we'll ask for the PIN number. Right, fax box number. You can have one fax box number, right? So if I didn't have one here, you would have an option to add from spare or buy new. And then you would click on edit fax box. Now on this account, unfortunately, the fax box was broken. So you just see an error message. On your account, when you edit the fax box, you'll see two fields. The first is the inbound notification. So basically, who gets notified when a fax comes in. You put an email address in, the fax comes in, that email address gets an email saying, hey, you received a fax, here's a PDF. They can just double click on that attachment and look at the fax. They will also get the failed fax notifications here, right? So if someone dials your fax number, right, here's the fax and goes, oh, oops, wrong number, and hangs up, you can still get an email from that saying, hey, you had a failed inbound fax recipient. So that's something to be aware of. The second field is for outbound permissions. You could put an email address there, although it's generally designed if you own your own company domain, right? So you own abccleaners.com, and all your staff members have an email address that ends that way. You would simply add that domain into the outbound permissions box, click save, and any one of your staff members who has an email address can then fax out via Dash, even if they're not a user on the Dash account. Right? They just have to have that +1 area code and phone number, that symbol, account realm, and attach a PDF or a TIFF. All right, auto attendance. So this is if you have multiple auto attendants. Excuse me. And this is available on select plans. So if it's something you're interested in, you'd want to talk to our account services team to see about changing your plan if you don't have auto attendants available on the left here. There's two use cases that come up. The first is if you have multiple businesses on the same account, and you want these businesses to have their own phone numbers and their own main greetings. Right, but you have the same staff members answering calls for your multiple businesses. The other would be what I mentioned earlier, submenuing, right? So you can have a call come into your main menu, and you can say, for English, press 1, for Spanish, press 2, right? So when the customer presses 1, they get sent to a second menu, right, the submenu. They have an English greeting, and then any of their menu options should go to an English-speaking staff member, right? Whereas if they press 2, they get to that submenu, right, that second attendant, where the greetings in Spanish, right, and then the menu options would go to your Spanish-speaking staff members. All right. For adding an attendant, you just click Add Attendant here at the top, and you give it a name, and then you give it an extension number, and then you would click on Create Attendant, and then it would show up here. Now, if you click on the name, you have this option here for available in main menu. And actually, by default, it starts off as unavailable in main menu. So if it's unavailable in main menu, means it's not going to be a submenu. Likely means it's a standalone attendant or a separate business, right? But if you do want to make submenus, then you would say available in main menu. Likewise here, you can add his phone number, right? So I can add from my spares. And then click Save Changes. You can add multiple extension numbers. And then if you click on the little wrench icon here, you can now see you've got a virtual receptionist. And then I can enter in different routes. And then my own main greeting, etc. And then holidays as well. Now the open hours and holidays, that's going to match whatever I set up over here under main number. Right, so if I had after hours or lunch hours, it would still match what I set up under main number. And currently you can have up to 10 attendants. Right, devices shows your devices on the account. Green means it's connected, meaning we can send calls to it. Red means it's not connected, meaning we can't send a call to it. And black means you've disabled the device. You can add devices up here. We'll start with the SIP phone, which is that physical VoIP phone that sits on your desk. You find your manufacturer, and then you look for the model of the phone you're using. You give it a name, right? So Bob's phone, Angela's phone, whatever. And then you put the MAC address of the phone. So each phone has its own MAC address. It's typically a sticker on the back of the phone. If the phone's plugged in, you can also go under the status, and usually one of the options there is for the MAC address. So you can simply enter it here. You would click on Create Device and then add it to a user. Now, in terms of the dashboard, you're done. On the phone, you need to get into the phone's web user interface. Basically, you get the phone's IP address. You enter that IP address into the address bar of your browser, and then log into the phone. And then you need to enter in a URL under auto provisioning. Basically, tell the phone, hey, go here. It will get the config file. The phone will then reboot a couple times, and then it will show up as a green device on your dashboard here. Now, for the specifics of that, you want to go under our dash support pages. Right, so go to virtualpbx.com, mouse over support, select dash support, scroll down, and you look to the right. There's a section for VoIP devices, and you're looking for the auto provisioning phones document, which will have screenshots and the URL specifically that you need to enter, and you can go from there. Now, if your VoIP phone didn't show up on that list of devices under SIP phone, then you would need to use a third-party soft phone. So first you get the little warning message saying, hey, because of wireless technology and VoIP, you may not be at the E911 associated with your account, so please be aware of that. And then here, we're set up as a third-party device right off the bat. You can see it right down here in gray, use third-party application. So you give it a name. You're going to copy and paste the SIP username. If you click on the SIP password box, the password will be revealed. So you're going to want to copy and paste that. And then you also want to copy and paste the realm. Right? Those three pieces of information you're going to need to program into your soft phone application or that VoIP device. It's going to vary from device to device or from software application to application. We do have some guides on our website that you can look at to get an idea of where you're going to be putting this information. Usually it's like under line information, or there's like a SIP section that you can enter this information in. Now, so if you're using it for a third-party application, right, you would give it a name, copy this information down, assign it to a staff member, and click on Create Device. Now, if you want to use the VirtualPBX soft phone application, on this page here, where it says Use Third-Party Application under the realm, you just click on that. It's going to flip it and say, hey, use VirtualPBX application. Still give it a name, still assign it to someone, and then click on Create Device. When you click on Create Device at that point, the person that you assigned the phone to is going to get an email with their login information for the VirtualPBX soft phone application. If they're using it on, if they're going to use that on an iPhone or an Android mobile device, they can simply go to the App Store and do a search for VPBX phone, download that app, use the login information, and they're good to go. If you're intending to make use of the desktop application, so for Windows or Mac OS, then you are going to need to order a desktop license from the store, right? store.virtualpbx.com. Then you'll get the download links and the license key. All right, cell phone and landline are essentially the same. So give it a name. You put the plus sign, the number 1, and then the area code and phone number of the cell phone or landline. And then you assign it to a staff member. And you click on Create Device. And then under Advanced, so this is what the device is set up like by default. So when Dash sends a call to a cell phone or landline, right, the device will ring. When you pick up, you'll hear, this is a forwarded call, please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there, and yes, you want to take this call. Right? Whereas if you don't press 1, then the calls either go to your next device or go to your voicemail. Now, if you're, say, using the cell phone label here, but you're actually sending it to an automated answering service, right? So your after hours automated answering service, right? You can do that, but you would want to put a check mark here for allow use of cell phone's voicemail, right? Your automated answering service cannot press 1, right? It doesn't have fingers, and it doesn't know when to press 1, which is probably the most difficult part. So when you put a check mark there for allow use of cell phone's voicemail, what you're doing is when Dash sends a call out to that device, we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call, right? And then your automated answering service can take over at that point. Now, if you have this on when it's actually going to your cell phone, right? So if your cell phone voicemail picks up, we connect the call. So that inbound caller can end up on your cell phone's voicemail. Some people want that, right? Because they're like driving around all day and that's part of their business. Other people don't. So that's something to be aware of. Now, the other setting that some people change is the second one here, keep original caller ID. So by default, call comes in, gets rung to yourself. Like, so say customer Mary is calling into your Dash account, gets to your extension or your user. So on your cell phone, on its display, you see customer Mary's phone number. You don't recognize it. You're like, oh, I've been getting all those calls for my extended auto warranty. I'm tired of those. I'm just going to let the call go to voicemail, and if it's legit, I can call them back. However, if you uncheck this, then what happens is on your cell phone, instead of seeing customer Mary's phone number, we'll go back here to the dashboard. What you're going to see is this number here that you selected under your company caller ID. So that way you at least know, oh, this came into the work number, maybe I should take it. The last thing here we're going to cover is the web phone. Again, you get that same wireless warning message about E911. You give it a name, you assign it to an owner, and then you click on Create Device. Now, the web phone, right, uses Chrome or Firefox. The staff member then goes to webphone.virtualpbx.net, and it has login information there, right? It uses the same login information as their Dash login, right? Same email address, same password, same account name. As long as they're on Chrome and Firefox, they can then log in and make and receive calls. All right, Greetings Manager shows all the greetings on the account. You've got the name, the source, TTS is text-to-speech. It's also at the end of the name there. Recording means you recorded over the phone, and then upload means you uploaded the file. You can download these files so you can listen to it and see if it's relevant. You can click on the wrench icon here, and you say, oh, I don't need this anymore. Then you can simply delete the file, and now it's no longer there. You also have the option here where you can upload files. Can you give it a name? You find the file, and you're looking for .mp3.wave, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. And then you would click on Create Greeting, and it would upload it here. And then you can assign it wherever you need it to. Groups, short for ring groups. These are often departments. You click on Add Group, and then you give it a name and extension number, and then you click and drag everyone that you need to be in that group, right? And then you would click on Create Group. Once a group is created, you can click on the name. You can always change the name. And then you've got this group call attempts, right? Basically, number of times the inbound caller could ring through to your staff members. Default is 1. You got little arrows here to the right, so you can increase it or decrease it as you need to. And then if you make any changes, save changes. If you click on the members box here, you see all the staff members here. Along the top, these are timestamps. This last one is you can edit, right? So default for a new group is 120 seconds, 2 minutes. You can change it down to 60 if you want, or up to 600. Actually, I think you go beyond that, but 600 is the most I've seen. Now, you can also click distribute here. So now it's offering the calls equal to everybody and in this order. If I don't like this order, I can click and drag someone's name. Right, and then I can click redistribute. So now Mia's first. Now these are sliders, as you probably noticed when we first opened up here. I can also do something like this, which is referred to as blast ringing within telecom. So basically what I'm setting this up to is to ring everybody all at once at the same time and for the same amount of time. Basically, whoever gets the call first gets it, right? So like if in a warehouse space, for example, you have phones along the perimeter, hey, someone get it. Now, one thing to be aware of when you have a blast ringing setup like this, or actually any of the setups, but let's say a call comes in and Mia answers the call, right? So she's helping the customer. If a second call comes into this group, Mia will hear a call waiting beep on her side until one of the other staff members picks up, right? So say Jean then picks up the second call. So Mia and Jean are both on call. Third call comes in, they're both going to hear a call waiting beep until say John picks up that call. And if you make any changes, click on Save Changes. Groups can have extension numbers. Right? We created one with it, but you can add multiple if you need to. They can also have their own phone numbers. They can have multiple of them if you need to. And then next up, we've got group features. So first up is ring back. This is essentially hold music for while the inbound caller is waiting for one of your staff members to pick up. You click enable. You want to upload a file, get a .wave, .mp3 recorded in mono. And then you would click on Save Changes. The main thing is whatever file you select, you want to make sure that it matches the ring duration of the groups, right? So if you go back to the members, right? We have this 120-second total ring time. So that means whatever file I choose to upload needs to ring for 100 or play for 120 seconds, right? It doesn't automatically loop the file for you. All right, next action is if no one answers, what are you going to do with the call, right? In this case, I'm sending it to the main voicemail box, but I can send it back to the main menu. I can send it to one of my other call flows. I can send it to an ACD queue. I can send it to a specific device. I can send it to another group. I can send it to a specific user, and then any voicemail box. Allow call forward. This is for your VoIP phone users. If you enable it, they can make use of call forwarding, so they can send calls to a different device, right? So like, oh, I'm not going to be at my desk today. I've got a lot of, customer visits to make, but I still want to be able to get calls for this group. Caller ID prepend. This is another VoIP phone feature. Again, you can add either text or numbers in front of the caller ID that shows up on your VoIP phone user's phone. Right, so if they're in multiple groups, it gives them a heads up about what the call is going to be about. Now, something to keep in mind for groups is you can send calls on your users to like cell phones, landlines, or VoIP phones. But you only have these limited routing options. Once you're in a group, you're in the group, right? Any call comes into it at any time of day, your phone's going to ring, right? So if Mia here has her cell phone there, and this is a 24-hour open business, right? She can get a call at 3 in the morning on her cell phone because she's in this ring group, right? Versus ACD queues, which we'll get into later, they have more advanced routing options, but in a queue, you can only use VoIP devices, right? So soft phone, web phone, or physical VoIP phone, but you can log out of the queue at the end of your day, so that way you don't get rung on your phones in the middle of the night. All right, numbers. This takes you to your number manager. Shows your numbers in use and where they're going. And then you also have your spare numbers. Now, if you want to get rid of a phone number, right, you're like, okay, we're not going to use it anymore, and I'm tired of my bill being this high, then you want to make sure it's unassigned. But then once you click on the box in front of the number here on spare numbers, you see I have the option here to delete. And then you can select whichever numbers you want to get rid of. And then click on delete. Basically asking me if I'm sure, then says yes, I've deleted, and you see the number list shrunk. Now over here, you have the option to port. It's a new port request. You give it a name, you choose US local or toll free, and then you need to upload a file. In this case, it's asking you for a bill in a PDF format. As you go into the process, it will then ask you for details about the phone number. It will ask you to download a blank LOA or letter of agency, and then to upload a completed letter of agency. Actually, excuse me, a completed and signed LOA. Now, on the LOA, it's going to ask you for company information, right? So your business name, the address, etc. That information should match what your current carrier has on file for that phone number, right? So say you're porting from AT&T to VirtualPBX. Whatever AT&T has on file for that phone number, the company name, the address, and who's signing for it, that should all match on the LOA, should match what AT&T has on file. It does need to be signed. It can be a digital signature. You don't actually have to print it out and hand sign it. But then you would submit the bill copy and the LOA either via this portal here, or you can just email porting@virtualpbx.com. We get that information. we submit the port request. As long as everything matches, then there shouldn't be a problem, right? And then AT&T will then say, hey, we'll release a number to you on this date. We'll let you know the port completes. If there's a problem, right? Let's say the address is wrong. We get an error message from AT&T basically saying address mismatch, right? They're not going to tell us you're missing a digit on the street number, or you misspelled the street name, right? Or what have you. They're just going to say address mismatch, right? We double check our documents that we had to make sure we didn't typo anywhere. If that's the case, then we let you know saying, hey, we got an address mismatch error. You're going to double check with AT&T to find out what the address should be. Some things to keep in mind about port requests. It's not instantaneous, right? Because of that documentation verification aspect, there's always going to be a delay. Local numbers, the fastest I've seen a local number go is the next day, and that was from that's usually from Google Voice to us. And you have to have a number unlocked already, right? But typically, for most local numbers, it's about 2 to 3 weeks on average for the number to complete the process. Toll-free numbers is typically right around 5 business days, give or take, assuming everything is correct. All right, users. So great person is your standard user. Little blue suit means they're a system admin. Click on add user up here at the top. You enter in their name. The email address used for login is unique for each user. All right, so each user has their own email address to use. You create the password, and then you assign an extension number. Now on this system, I started off with extension 1000. And it's being helpful and telling me, hey, the next one available in that sequence is 1012. Right, probably because I deleted some people at some point. Now, I can change it to something else. Let's say I'm adding a new business to this account, right? So I made a new attendant. I might say, nope, this new employee, I'm going to start him with extension 7000. That's fine. It's not going to cause a problem, assuming you don't already have something with extension 7000. By default, you create a new voicemail box for the user at the same time. That's intrinsically tied to that user. If you want to include them in the user directory, yes or no, you can change your mind later. You can send email to an alternate address and then enter a different email address. Right? This email address would supersede the email address used for login in terms of sending voicemail to that person, or a password reset, or the soft phone credentials. Right, and then probably the next most important one, probably the most important one in my opinion, send credentials to the user, right? So when you click on create user, this email address used for login will get an email saying, hey, you're set up on Dash, here's your login information. And if you need to create multiple people, you have create user and add another. Once a user is created, you can click on their name. Right, you can change their name. You can change their credentials, right? Change their email address, change their password. You also have the option here just to send them the password reset email. So if like Bob and I, for instance, different wavelengths when it comes to passwords, I can say here, make your own. Change voicemail box PIN. So if your staff members are using VoIP phones, you don't actually have to create a PIN number for their voicemail boxes. You can just tell them, hey, pick up your VoIP phone, dial *98. That automatically logs them into that voicemail box you created at the same time you created the user. And the first time they do that, the system will prompt them to enter a PIN number, as well as them to record their name and their voicemail box greeting. For your landline or cell phone users, you do need to create a PIN number for them. Right, then you got the options to send to an alternate address, as well as to include in the user directory. Over here on the right, the user is a pull down, so you could change a user into an admin or an admin to a user. This is the time zone. So you can search, so you can change the user to their specific time zone. This is the display language of the dashboard on the web page. So it's English, French, German, and Russian. The ringing timeout is how much time by default the system will send calls to their devices. So in this case, 45 seconds. The default for a new user is 20 seconds, which is typically plenty of time for, say, a landline or a VoIP phone. It might be problematic for it if the person is only getting calls on a cell phone. Typically, we recommend between 45 and 60 seconds for calls going to a cell phone. So basically, how a PBX system handles calls. Basically, call comes in, says, oh, we're sending it to a landline, right? We send it to that telecom company. They say, oh, we know where that is. Boom, sends the call, right? No stop. Whereas call comes in to the PBX and then, oh, we need to send it to, a T-Mobile cell phone number, right? We go, hey, T-Mobile. They said, hold on a second. We need to find them first, right? Ping cell phone towers, finds you, then says, okay, now send the call, right? That delay is why it takes longer to route a call to a cell phone versus a landline. All right, extensions. Users can have multiple extension numbers. Right, you can just click add extension. A user can also have their own phone number. Right, you can add from spare or buy new, right, local or toll free. The devices box. You can add new devices directly here, right? Same options as we had on the device page. You also have spare devices, meaning you had a device that someone was using, and then you unassigned it. Then you can reassign it to another user. And then we've got user features. So caller ID number only works for a user that has their own phone number. When you enable it, you're basically saying, hey, this phone number is what I'm going to use for my outbound caller ID. Right? So anytime I use my VoIP phone, that's the phone number that shows up when I make an outbound call. Call forwarding, you have off, on, or failover mode. Now, call forwarding is something your users can turn on themselves through the user portal, right? But basically, call forwarding is if, hey, I'm not going to be at my normal phone, so send calls to my backup device, right? So wherever you're forwarding to is not part of your normal routing on a day-to-day basis, right? So when you turn it on, you're saying, hey, I'm not going to be at my desk today, and then send calls, in this case, to my cell phone. Now, failover mode is a VoIP phone feature. So when the system detects that the phone's unregistered and a call comes in at that time to my user, right? Then the system says, oh, your VoIP phone's unregistered. I'm going to send it to this other phone number automatically. So that way you don't miss the call, right? But then you also have a reason like, why is my VoIP phone not working? Hot desking. If you click enable, this is a VoIP feature for use in a office environment where you may be at a different desk from day to day, right? So as, say, many places are opening up after the pandemic, as more people get vaccinated, you might have more offices going hot desking because you're going to allow people to work from home more often, right? So like maybe people only, working in the office 1 or 2 days a week. Well, they don't need a fixed desk space then, right? So you're going to be sitting at different desks from each time you come into the office. So by setting up a hot desk, you click an ID. I usually say match it to your extension number if you're using 4-digit extensions. Up to the admin if they want to require a PIN number. But basically, I come into the office on, say, today, Tuesday, and I'm sitting at desk number 7 because it has a nice view, by the window. When I sit down, I pick up the VoIP phone, the handset, I hit *11 on that VoIP phone. The system that asks me for my hot desk ID, I enter that. It will ask me for the PIN number if that's been enabled. And then it will tell me calls will now be sent to this device. So any call to my user, whether I'm in a group, a queue, whatever, will be sent to the device I'm sitting at. Right? End of my day, I pick up the handset, I hit *12, that turns off hot desking, I go home. Next time I come into the office, say that's Friday, right? But someone's already sitting at desk number 7. I'm like, oh, no window seat today. All right, desk number 23, I guess you're the winner. I sit down at desk 23, I pick up the VoIP phone at that desk, and again, hit *11, enter my hot desk ID, and now the calls are coming to me at desk 23. All right, voicemail was enabled when the user was created. If you click on it, you have some other options like you can turn on transcription, also enable voicemail and email. That means that whenever a voicemail gets left, this user gets an email where in the attachment, or there will be an attachment with a MP3 file so they can listen to the voicemail. And then you also have the option here to delete the messages after they send that notification. So voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. Fax box, users can have their own fax box. If you click enable. Now you can select from a spare number, you can buy a new number. Or you can select an extension. I typically recommend making use of a phone number because that's straightforward and anyone will be able to fax to your user. If you assign an extension, right, that saves you the potential expense of adding a phone number. However, you are relying on that person who's faxing in to be able to fax to an extension, right? Because they're going to have to call your main number, enter in this extension number, right? So you have to find an available extension number. So yeah, person's faxing in, calls main number, enters the extension number after you click on select extension, and then they click on send fax. Now, from a physical fax machine, that's probably easier because they at least have like a handset probably so they can listen in. But from an email to fax service or e-fax service, they may not have the ability to fax to an extension. So that's something to be aware of. Conference Bridge. If you enable it on a user, they can host a conference. The only thing you need to then set up is their personal conference room PIN number and then click on Save Changes. This PIN number, the user can change themselves via the user portal, which we'll be getting to in just a little bit. Follow Me is good for users with multiple devices. So let's go down to Duke here since he's got 2. And you see here, you've got a total ring time of 120 seconds, just like we did in groups. And you have the option to distribute. Now, when you first enable it, it's going to look like this. It's basically saying, hey, which device do you want to use? Or devices in this case, right? And then you uncheck, and then I say normally just click on distribute, right? You can change the order, right? And then click redistribute, right? These are sliders, so I can do a little bit more overlap if I wanted to, etc. And then click on Save Changes. Music on hold. Users can have their own music on hold. You would just click enable and then upload .wave.mp3 recorded mono under 1 megabyte. Right, and then click on Save Changes. Customized call recording. If you enable it, and then click Save Changes and leave, then you haven't actually enabled recording fully. You basically need to decide which of these types of calls you're going to record. Inbound internal means coworker call, right? So coworker Bob called. Do I want to record that or not? Right? Inbound external means the customer called in. Probably want to record that, right? Outbound internal means, in this case, Duke called Bob back. And then outbound external means Duke called a customer back. So once I click it like that, now I'm at least recording those 2 types of calls. And any call recordings will be under recordings.virtualpbx.com. Uses your same login as Dash. All right, voicemail boxes. So here you're going to see all your voicemail boxes. The ones with users will have their name in the user field here. You can also create your own voicemail boxes for use with like ring groups, for example. All right, you give it a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number, and then you would click on Create Voicemail Box. Now, once you've created a voicemail box, you go to Advanced. Okay, so greeting media, you're going to want to either upload or record over the phone a file into the media section here, right? Or you can just upload mp3.wave under 1 megabyte. Then, especially for a manually created voicemail box, you want to go to recipients and add at least one recipient, if not multiple, right? So someone knows the voicemail was left here. Now, for your user voicemail boxes, you don't need to add a recipient because they already have one built in. And then you have options. So once you have that media file in place and a recipient, you can say you put a check mark here for saying it's already set up. And then up to you about the delete after notification, attach messages to email. Right? These two are pretty much tied because if you're attaching messages to the email, then you're okay to delete after that notification email sent out because then whoever's getting these voicemails has it in their email box. And again, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. Advanced routing. Eventually will load. So here we've got direct inward system access, or DISA. What this does is allows a cell phone or landline user to call into your main number and then log in over the phone and then make an outbound call. And when they make that outbound call, it won't be their cell phone number that shows up as the caller ID, but your main company number. Now, by default, this is not enabled on accounts. If it's something you want, you can just send in a request to support at VirtualPBX.com, and we can turn that feature on. And then you will then be allowed to enable it. You see I have a PIN number here. If you click Settings, I usually recommend adding an extension number to it, and then clicking Save Change it. So now, cell phone user calls into main number. Right, that goes to the virtual receptionist. When they hear their greeting play, they enter in the extension number. Then the system will ask them for this PIN number. Then he'll dial tone again and enter area code and phone number that I'm going to be reaching out to. And then the phone number that shows up on the other side is, again, this main number here instead of my personal cell phone number. Now, the reason this is not enabled by default is this is actually a way for people, right? If someone figures out the PIN number, for example, they can then log into your system over the phone and then make a bunch of outbound calls on your account, and you may not realize it right away, so they can run up your bill, potentially. All right, call logs. This shows your call activity on the account. Let's switch that to this month. So green arrow to the right means that's an inbound call. And then you can see here it rang to different devices and for how long. And then it was obviously picked up on this one. And then, so normal clearing tells you the call ended normally, right? Nothing unusual happened, right? Lose race means that there are multiple devices, and this is the device that won, right? That's why it's got the normal clearing. Right, you'll occasionally see something like recovery timer expire, which usually for a VoIP phone, which normally means there was a network problem of some type. Right, originator cancel means the inbound person hung up. Oops. Right, little yellow arrow to the left, that's an outbound call. You can see what device was used and where they were calling to. You can always download this file. You can also set up your own custom date range and then download as a CSV file. The more call activity you have, the longer it will take to download. So that's something to be aware of. The little fire hydrant icon here, this will create an email so you can send it to support@virtualpbx.com. You'll have the technical details already in the body of the email. I strongly suggest that you add text on top of that saying, this is what I experienced or what didn't actually happen. Like, right, it'll say, hey, a call came in, but my phone didn't actually ring. So then we can at least take a look and hopefully give guidance in terms of what happened or make test calls with you. All right, feature codes. I've already mentioned the hot desking one, which is right here. But basically, these are dial pad shortcuts to make use of features on the DAX system from your VoIP phone. Now, down here, the *97, which is for voicemail, you can use that from a cell phone or a landline, right? Call into the main number, hit *97 from a cell phone, for example. The system will then ask you for the voicemail box number and then that PIN number, and then you can check voicemail on that particular voicemail box. And then you can also get into the personal settings, so you could change the greeting if you needed to. These are also published on our website under the DAX support pages. There's a feature code article. There's also the phone commands cheat sheet, which is a PDF, which basically has these, but also like with a brief explanation, which might be easier for your staff members to make use of. All right, let's go up to their hamburger menu up here. So we've been on the dashboard this whole time. So next up, we've got ACD queues. ACD stands for Automatic Call Distribution. It's a call center feature. It ranges from, so these are, what we have here are the standard ACD queues. These range from $15 to $30 per month per queue, and that depends on your plan. There's also ACD Queues Pro, which has some additional features. Those start at $99 currently. If you're interested in either version, you're going to want to talk to our account services team because one, they'll be able to make sure what plan you're on and tell you, verify for sure what pricing you're at. But they can also walk you through which types of queues between standard or the Pro make the most sense for you. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. You can always click on Add New Queue. I'm just going to click on the gear icon here because that has the same settings. You give a queue a name, and then you choose either a phone number or an extension. Right, so queues can have either a phone number or extension, where groups can have both. Right, and again, queues can only currently can only take calls on a VoIP device, right? Soft phone, web phone, or a physical VoIP phone. And then under configuration, you've got the routing strategy. There's 5 to choose from. Unfortunately, pull down is not working. So most idle is whoever's been waiting the longest for a call gets the next call that comes into the queue. You have ring all, which means ring everybody until someone answers. Then you have round robin, which essentially will equalize the number of calls over time to the users. You've got least offered. Basically, whoever's had the least amount of offered calls gets the next call that comes in. So say Bob and Mary are both in my queue. Bob's been offered 20 calls. Mary's been offered 5 calls. Under least offered, the next call that comes in goes to Mary. Right, and then there's least calls, which is the least amount of connected calls. So in that 20 and 5 scenario with Bob and Mary, let's say Bob has talked to 2, right? Two connected calls out of the 20. Let's say Mary's spoken to all 5 of her offered calls. Under least calls routing, the next call comes in goes to Bob. Now, in both of those 2 scenarios, if say Daniel logs in, right, after Bob and Mary have been in for a while, he's going to get the next call under least offers or least calls because he has 0 for both. All right, hold treatment. You can upload a music file. .wave, .mp3, recorded in mono. ACD Queues Pro, you have more hold treatment options than just uploading a music file. You can have things like announce the position in line, announce their expected wait time. You can have multiple music files play. Queue timeout, this is how much time the inbound callers can wait on hold, measured in seconds. Queue call limit, these are the number of people who can be waiting on hold. Now, this is on top of people who are already talking to staff members, right? So if I have, Bob and Mary are talking to customers, I can have 4 more people wait on hold. Right. Now, timeout immediately if empty. If this is enabled, if I have no staff members logged in and a caller comes into my queue, that call will be treated as if it hit this timeout up here in the 3600 seconds. Escalation queue, you can have calls go to a second queue if all your staff members are busy. And then escalation call flow after timeout. So after this 3600 seconds, send callers to, in this case, I'm sending it to the main voicemail box. You have options, right? You can click none, meaning the call went to its end. You can send it to an alternate attendant. You can send it to a specific device. Again, not recommended. You can send it to a directory. You can send it to a ring group. You can send it to a media file. Again, typically not recommended. And then anyone's voicemail box. Now, one thing to keep in mind is if a call comes in and goes to an escalation queue, this original timeout starts on that first queue they entered, right? So it came into this queue and goes into this portal created queue, right? So even if the call ends up in my escalation queue, after 3600 seconds, the system will then send it to the Starbucks voicemail box because this is the queue that call started on. All right, agent behavior, agent recovery time measured in seconds, usually 15 to 30 seconds is what we see. So basically it's after the agent has finished the call with a customer, the system will then put them in recovery time, meaning they have 30 seconds before the system will offer them another queue call from this queue, right? So they can, write up their ticket, get a sip of water, etc. Force away on reject or missed. If this is enabled, means if a staff member or agent misses the call, they're put in away mode, meaning they're not offered another call until they put themselves back in ready. And agent connect timeout, 20 seconds. It's how much time we try to reach the devices on the user. And again, since we're using VoIP phones, 20 seconds is plenty of time. Any changes, you would click on Save Changes. Now, in terms of staff members, over here we've got the members section. This shows all my staff members who are available to be in queues. Now, they're not in all of my queues. They're the pool to choose from to put into the various queues. If you click up here on Manage Members, now you see on the left, these are the people who are not in queues at all, but on the account, here are people who are in queues. If I want to add someone, I just click on their name and add them as a member. You can add multiple at once. And you'll see here it will update. And then if I want to remove someone, I can do the same. Now if we go back to the queues, we go here, I can add agents, and then I can choose staff members to add to the queue, and then I would click Save Changes. Unfortunately, that's cut off. And then once you have members, or you've added agents to the queue, then you can add managers. Basically, right, first you have to add them as an agent, and then you can promote them to be a manager of a specific queue. For your staff members, again, they would log into dash.virtualpbx.com. They would mouse over here and click on ACD queues. and then they would click on begin session. And the first time they ever log in, they're going to want to click on the little phone icon here and select their VoIP device, right? And then once they've done that, they can select themselves as ready. And you notice here, this one changed to 1. So here I'm green, meaning I'm ready to make a call, right? If I mark myself as away, I'm going to turn red, meaning, hey, I'm marked away. If I'm on a call, oh, here, let me rephrase. If I'm on an inbound call, right, so a call came into the queue, I will be blue, letting you know, hey, I'm on a call. If I'm on a call that came directly to my extension, right, so it didn't come through the queue, or I made an outbound call to someone else, I'll be yellow, meaning I'm on an external call. And if I'm on wrap up time, I'll have a golden bar over here on the left. For ACDQs Pro, there is a performance icon that's in between these two, so you can compare two agents to each other just to see how they're doing. Also on ACDQs Pro, managers, I believe it's managers, it might be admins, but I'm pretty sure it's managers. They have the option that they can listen in on a staff member's call. They can whisper to their agent, right, to give them pointers as they're helping a call, or they can barge into a call and take over, essentially. And that's ACDQs. Next up, we've got blacklists. This allows you to create a list to block numbers from reaching your system. So you would click on Edit Blacklists here to the right. And if you're creating a new list or for the first time, you would click Add. But otherwise, you can click on an existing list. You give the list a name. And then this first option you have is for blocking anonymous, meaning if we don't get valid inbound caller ID, we'll block the number from reaching, or block that call from reaching your system. They get busy tone. Right. Otherwise, you click on Add Number. You put +1 area code and phone number. And for each phone number that you want to block from reaching the system, and you would just keep clicking Add as you have them. And then you would click on Save. And then you go back to Settings. And then you make sure that list is over here on the right, under Selected. Right, that lets you know these are the active lists. So that for any phone number on these two lists, if they try to call any number on my account, they get a busy tone. All right, dynamic caller ID. This is available on some plans. So if you're interested, you'd want to talk to our account services team. But what this does is allow you to create your own rules or feature codes and to change the outbound caller ID for your VoIP phone users. Right, so you would create a rule. You give it a name, and then you select a phone number that you want to display as the outbound caller ID. And then you choose either a feature code or area code. So here, let me close out of this. Right, so in this case, I'm saying on this rule that if I start a call with *71, and then I put area code, 1 area code and phone number, my outbound caller ID will show up as this phone number, no matter what my other caller ID settings are for that user. Right. Likewise, for this one up here, what I'm saying is if I'm dialing area code 408, my outbound caller ID is going to show up as this 800 number. Doesn't matter what my caller ID is. Now, the phone numbers you can choose to display can only be numbers on the account. So the more numbers, so it allows you, like if you have like staff members in multiple states, right? They can then say, hey, I want to make an outbound call to, say, Nashville. I can have a Nashville phone number show up, even if that staff member, might actually be in, Virginia instead, for whatever reason. The fax manager, So as an admin, you can get to any fax box on the account. So you can see their inbound faxes or their outbound faxes if they have any. And then you can also see the email to fax logs. If you have anything here, it'll have a thumbs up or thumbs down. But over here on the right, there'll be an icon with a little eyeball. If you click on that, that'll give you more information about why a fax didn't go out. Typically, it's a bad attachment, or occasionally you'll have someone who used their personal email address instead of a work email address. Monitor is also a plan-specific feature, so you'd want to check with account services, but basically you can see what your staff is doing, right? Green, it means they're waiting for a call. Red, they're marked away. Blue, they're on an inbound. Yellow, they're on external. And gold, they're on wrap-up time. It just gives you a snapshot of what their status is at. Number manager, again, this takes you to your spare number page. The recording manager takes you to your recordings page. I don't know why it's not working. But basically, you can just go to recordings.virtualpbx.com and log in to see your actual recordings. Reports is currently a paid feature. I don't know if it's still technically in beta, but basically this is advanced reporting. So it's the call log is basic call information, whereas the reports, you can make your own reports. So you can see like who's getting calls, or like what your busiest times of day are, that sort of thing. If you're interested in the reports, you're going to want to talk to our account services team, as this is available on some plans or as an add-on. Voicemails, this is the voicemail manager. You can get to any voicemail box on the account and see if they have any messages. As an admin, you can then also delete messages. You can move messages to the correct voicemail box, etc. Webhooks, this makes use of APIs to link Dash to other software. If you're interested in the webhooks, you would want to talk to our sales team. They have some additional information. And you can also take a look at developer.virtualpbx.com to see examples of what we have done with webhooks and Dash. And then lastly, we've got the user portal. So every user on your account has their own user portal that they can get to. You as an admin cannot get to their user portal, but you can get to all the information anyway. But this is where, if you did not have delete after notification set up, their voicemails would show up here under the voicemail tab, right? So they could play them back, they could download them, they can delete them, etc. Call history, they can see their call history, both inbound and out. They can see their fax history, although, again, fax box is broken here. The contact list, this is all the information within the Dash account, right? So they can see the different extension numbers or phone numbers for users, groups, attendance, etc. This is not something they can add to, so I could not add my personal accounts to this, right? So next up, we've got the conference tab. So over here on the right, this is where your staff members can control their PIN numbers, as well as the settings for when people join the conference, join or leave the conference. Right, so they can choose to have people join deafened or muted, as well as play entry and exit tones when people come in and leave. Up here, they can invite other Dash users on the account to their conference. They can lock a conference so other people cannot join. They can mute everybody. They can unmute everybody. They can end the call. When they're actually in a conference, you can actually mute a specific participant as well as kick a specific participant. All right, then we got the Settings and Devices tab. So here's where your users can set up their own call forwarding. They just click on the box there. They put where they want it to go. Right, they can choose to also have it ring the VoIP phone. They can keep the caller ID if they want to, and then send voicemail to email, and then send it to that particular location. They can also see the status of their devices. All right. I'm going to go back to the dashboard here. So that's everything I have slated to cover here. I'm going to wait around for a minute or so, see if anyone has any questions, and then we'll go from there. All right, I'm not seeing any chats come through, so I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. Thank you very much for your time today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.